Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. My name's Nick Marro here with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS, and I am here to help you kind of take a first look at this massive NBA slate tonight on both DraftKings and FanDuel. It's a Friday night slate. I believe we are looking at 12 games, so 24 teams in action, and there is a lot of news to consider, injuries to consider. And we already have some decent value plays as well as plays up top. So I'm going to do my best to kind of keep this video short and sweet. It's definitely going to be tough, given that there are 12 games. But rather than going by game, I'm going to start with injuries and we'll kind of work from there. So yeah, I'm pulling up the OccupyFantasy.com NBA injury report. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, if you're not already a member at Occupy Fantasy, please consider joining. Um, yeah, we have a Discord server with experts in there almost 24/7 to help you build lineups, work on your strategy, answer DFS questions. We offer content, and our one-of-a-kind lineup builder and NBA model have been helping users win a lot already to start the season. We've had GPP takedowns. I know the guys have been cleaning up with the satellite tickets to bigger tournaments. So yeah, we'll help you no matter where you start, where your bankroll is. We can help you kind of build that up and work towards being the best DFS player you possibly can be. Because in the year 2022, if you're not using tools like this, if you're not part of a Discord, part of a team, it's going to be very difficult to win consistently. And yeah, we just have a great group of humble guys who are there looking to help you out, myself included, and we'd love you to join. And if you're not quite ready to join, if you could please click the like and subscribe, that helps us a lot. It helps us kind of climb those YouTube algorithms and get this content to you as much and as frequently as possible. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into these injuries. There are a lot to consider here today. So Terry Rozier is currently a game time decision for the Hornets. If he's back, obviously he's going to be good play with LaMelo Ball still out. It seems more likely than not that he's going to be out again. And this is significant because we're also going to be missing out on Gordon Hayward this evening. So if I click over to Charlotte here, it's really a question of what do they have left? I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. has kind of been hit or miss. DK's lowered his price back down to 6,400. I believe he's 6,900 on FanDuel, which is okay. Same price as Kelly Oubre, who happens to be a little bit cheaper on DK. So usually I'm not crazy about playing Oubre. He's very scoring dependent. If he doesn't get the shots, um, he doesn't always hit value. But I mean, with the two main usage guys out for this team, I think he has to be considered. And let's see here. Let me just quickly, you can sort by team and see that Cody Martin's out as well. So yeah, really any starter in the Charlotte game is going to be someone you want to take a look at. I do know that this is one of the wider spreads on the slate, so there is a minor kind of degree of blowout risk here. Um, but I think it's only around 10 points, so it's really not something we have to fear too much. But yeah, I think you can load up on anyone who starts for the Hornets here. Even Mason Plumlee's been really good lately. Somewhat inconsistent, but he's cheap. And obviously on FanDuel, you don't always want to use that center slot on someone that's just like a value play. But if he's consistently hitting 6, 7x value, he's definitely someone I think you can consider. PJ Washington, his price is up as well. But when he's going to see increased usage, he does show kind of a 40 fantasy point ceiling. So he's someone we could look at. But really, it's going to be any of these starters. I think Oubre is probably going to be the most popular, followed by Dennis Smith. And I think it would be Dennis Smith number one if he hasn't been so inconsistent. But in this matchup with Memphis, I do think he can get his shots off. So, yeah, I'm going to be looking at all of these Hornets starters. Let's just click out of that. Yeah, moving right along here, we have Dame Lillard still out for the Trailblazers. I think Josh Hart's back. I know he was questionable the other day. When he's out, there's even more usage to go around. But yeah, we're seeing Dame here. He's pushing 40% usage on the season. Obviously, that creates a little bit of a trickle-down effect to the other starters, similar to what we're seeing in Charlotte. Anthony Simons is kind of the first guy you're going to be looking at, but he's actually listed as questionable as well. I think he's in. I think he's going to play, but that's obviously something to keep keep an eye on. If you are on the Discord, we'll keep you updated there with news and the NBA model updates in real time as we get that injury news. But yeah, it looks like Hart's in. If Simons is out, I'll like Hart even more here. He's someone we're going to consider. Shady on Sharp as well. He's had a few decent games, really hasn't seen as much run as we like. We've yet to see him go over 30 minutes, but if Simons is out tonight, I think they almost need to let him play for 30 minutes. And then another guy who I like to talk about is Justice Winslow. Whenever we see him in the starting lineup, he kind of takes on that point forward role. He's going to be doing more ball handling than you typically would see from a forward, so he becomes very interesting as a fantasy play. Jeremy Grant, the numbers haven't really been there, but with Dame out, we are seeing him get a bump in usage. We're seeing this right in his game logs with more than 30 fantasy points in back-to-back games. He is kind of priced up, so I'm not necessarily prioritizing him. But if Simons is out and the Blazers are going to have any chance of keeping this game close, I think he's going to have to be heavily involved. So it's really all the starters here. The one who I haven't touched on yet is probably the best of the bunch. That's Yusuf Nurkic. Whenever he's getting over 30 minutes, he has a chance to hit a 50 fantasy point ceiling, even with Dame in the lineup. Obviously, that ceiling is going to come much more frequently when Dame is out. And if Simons is out, I could see the offense kind of running through him along with Justice Winslow. So I do like Nurk here. Ideally, I think we want Simons in. I know we'd get more value if he's out, but if this game really has a chance of staying close against Phoenix, I do think the Blazers are going to need as many bodies as they can put on the floor. So moving into the next big, and this isn't really an injury as much as it's just stupidity at this point, but Kyrie Irving's out. The Nets suspended him for 5 games for some comments he's made. He did post an apology late last night, but it does seem he'll be out for a minimum of 5 games. And what that means is, with Ben Simmons also out, that Kevin Durant becomes one of the better plays on the entire slate. The Nets are in Washington. I do think this game could stay close. Let's see here. Just taking a quick look at the spread, I imagine it's fairly close. Yeah, the Wizards are 3-point favorites at home. KD, he's not going to be shy here. He's been seeing a lot of double teams, triple teams on defense, and still getting his shots off and still consistently hitting value. So I do think around 10K, he's one of the better plays on the slate. He's not quite on the tier of like a Luka or a Giannis, but at the same time, we're getting him cheaper than those two. So he's probably one of my favorite plays, just kind of taking a quick look at the slate as a whole. So yeah, I think KD is one of my first guys in, and then we can kind of talk about who else this is going to benefit. Nicholas Claxton, when Simmons has been out, Simmons has been playing more at the 5, which has pushed Claxton out of the rotation more often than we saw last season. But he's going to look good here. Royce O'Neal had a great game as chalk last time out, but his price is up. Probably not someone I'm rushing to if he's going to be popular again. Joe Harris, all right play, very, very scoring dependent. Let me just pull up the FanDuel prices. But yeah, you got to keep an eye on the starting lineup. If Patty Mills starts, he's probably going to be the popular guard. I would prefer it be Edmund Sumner, and I know our model does as well. Sumner's looked better so far than Patty Mills. Mills is super scoring dependent. With Sumner, you're getting some assists, you're getting some rebounds in many cases. Really hasn't shown much of a ceiling yet, but near minimum price on a slate this large. If you're trying to fit multiple studs, this is the type of play that can open something like that up. Cam Thomas really hasn't seen any run yet this season, but this is a very, very talented scorer. So if we get word that he's going to be starting or in the rotation, then I think Thomas is someone I would like to play. But at the same time, it's really tough to make that call since we haven't seen it yet. But the Nets did fire Steve Nash just a few days ago, and he didn't love Cam Thomas because he's not great on defense. But I think now it's kind of KD's show until maybe Ime Udoka comes in. So we could see more Cam Thomas, but I would be careful with that one. That's really a large field tournament play. It's going to be either Mills or Sumner, depending on who starts. I do think Sumner's probably the better point guard at this point. Mills is kind of more of a hybrid shooting guard type. But yeah, it's going to be easier to trust the guy who starts. But if Mills is super chalky, maybe that's a spot you get away from just because he is so scoring dependent. You don't want Watanabe if he makes it into the starting lineup. A very scoring dependent player as well. But I can't imagine his ownership rivals Mills or Sumner if Sumner starts. Um, Otherwise, yeah, it's really tricky. If Seth Curry is in, He's listed as questionable now. He's someone we could take a look at, but I don't think it would be a long look. We haven't seen him play over 20 minutes yet this season. I have trouble expecting that from him here. Royce O'Neal, again, it feels kind of weird playing him as a chalk play, but with all these guys out, I do think he's going to be at least viable. Maybe not a core player or anything like that this evening. Really, it's KD's show, but we're going to have to keep an eye on that starting lineup. But regardless, Washington's defense isn't great. This is really a good spot to target for Brooklyn guys. So I'll definitely have some love there. Moving into the Clippers, I know Kawhi is out once again. Let's see who else. Robert Covington's still listed as out. Yeah, with both of these guys out, we see a few things open up. I'll start this one on FanDuel. Yeah, Paul George, he had a few iffy games as chalk, but he's really been putting up numbers again. I do like him a lot on FanDuel at 8,800. I'm gonna imagine he's more expensive on DraftKings. Take a quick look at that. And yeah, 9,500, a little bit tougher to get to. I still think he's in play. Marcus Morris, scoring dependent, but viable. I don't love Reggie Jackson. I think he's cheaper on FanDuel. But he is seeing a nice bump in usage with Kawhi and others sidelined. Um, let's see here. 4,700. I think you can do worse. We'll probably get better value at guard, maybe someone in that Nets lineup. But if you want to kind of wait till these 8 o'clock games and see if we can get more news, then maybe Reggie Jackson's kind of a decent placeholder. John Wall, he's been good, but the minutes haven't necessarily been there. Only played 14 last time out. We haven't seen him play more than 24, which actually came in the season opener, which is interesting to say the least. But he's okay. I mean, if we get word that maybe he'll get bumped up to 30, he'd be one of the better plays on the slate. But that's something really tough to trust, especially with a coach like Ty Lue there in LA. But yeah, Morris, someone I'm definitely considering here. Power forward's usually a kind of tough position to fill. The price is up a bit, but I do like him to maybe 6x, 7x his value. And it's a good matchup against the Spurs. I think that's beneficial as well. Ivica Zubac, very inconsistent, but a very high ceiling, really good tournament play here with Kawhi's sideline. So yeah, there's a lot to like for these Clippers. Keep an eye on the starting lineup. They've been mixing things up. We've seen Luke Kennard in there. We've seen Norm Powell, Terrence Mann. Whoever starts at that wing position, I think we can take a look at. Mann's probably been the least consistent of the bunch. Kennard's very scoring dependent, but at the same time, I mean, if he starts and we're going to get near 30 minutes, I think he's a decent shot to hit value. At least on FanDuel, where he's 4,200, 4,300 on DK. So same deal over there. Keep an eye on that starting lineup. But there's definitely going to be value for these Clippers, namely Paul George on FanDuel, Morris on both sites, and then in tournaments, I do like Zubac a lot. So keep an eye on that. Injuries. We still have Andre Drummond out for the Bulls. This is kind of a weird one. I think Levine's in. They've been resting Levine some days, taking him out others. Kobe White's still questionable. If White and Drummond are out, maybe I look to Chicago. Obviously, this isn't as much usage as we're getting from some of these other teams with injuries because Drummond comes off the bench, as does Kobe White. But we've seen Caruso kind of slide into more minutes with these guys out. I think he'd be an okay value play. Same with Patrick Williams here. Look at this. 26 fantasy points in back-to-back games, and he's priced right at 4K flat. So if both of those guys are out, I do think Patrick Williams is someone you could take a look at as a value play. Not my favorite value play. He's been pretty inconsistent, but I mean, at that price, he's definitely someone we could take a look at. Same with Goran Dragic. I don't think he's going to start, but he's coming off back-to-back games where he was over 20 fantasy points. So again, we want Kobe White out. We want Andre Drummond out. But if both of these guys are out, then Dragic is probably going to be one of the better value plays once again. I would trust him more than the Nets point guard situation. Um, but yeah, this is all fluid, guys. And this is really why you need to be in the Discord. You need to have the model. You can kind of keep an eye on things as the day progresses. I'll talk to through the value after we get through these injuries. But you can see right now, Sumner at the top. I think we're assuming that he's going to get the start for Kyrie here. Um, and yeah, no Bulls really popping yet on FanDuel. Patrick Williams, there he is, 4,100. And on such a big slate, usually when you're scrolling down this much on a smaller slate, these aren't the guys you necessarily need to be playing. But when you consider that there's 12 games, these are all really elite value plays that we're looking at here. So just something to keep in mind. Um, But yeah, Chicago, some kind of secondary pieces. I don't mind the big starters. I really only like to pay up for DeRozan if Levine is out. And I do imagine Levine's in this year. All right, another big one to talk about here. James Harden, just over 30% usage this season, but he does run that offense. So with him sidelined, I think we're going to see a lot more usage for guys like Maxey, sorry, Anthony Melton. And the funny thing here is FanDuel actually got the pricing more right than DK did today. DK, they kind of dropped the ball on this one, for lack of a better word. Embiid's questionable. I think he's going to be in, but if he's out, obviously all these plays I'm about to talk about become even better. At the same time, even if Embiid is in, I do like them all because it would probably keep this game with New York even closer and more competitive. But yeah, we're getting Tobias Harris at 5,800. Tough not to like that. Maxey at 6,500 is almost impossible to get away from on TK. It's just a terrible price with Harden out. He's going to be running the offense. We've seen some huge games out of him. And same with Anthony Melton, only 4,400 in cash games. I don't know that you can get away from these guys on DraftKings, regardless of whether Embiid's in the lineup. On FanDuel, I don't love the 6K for Melton. He's an okay play. I'd much rather get up to Maxey at 8,200. And let's see, kind of working down. If someone like Shake Milton worked his way into the starting lineup, you're just naying. You could look at one of these guys, but really it's Maxey and Melton on both sites. More so tournament plays on FanDuel, although I do think Maxey's kind of a borderline catch play. Um, and yeah, on DraftKings they're almost locks. Like it's going to be really tough to get away from Melton and Maxey. And then I will say, if Embiid's in, it is a decent matchup against New York at 10K flat. I don't mind him as a pay up. Knowing he's coming off an injury or an illness rather, maybe he's not going to be my favorite pay up in this range, but he's definitely someone to consider with Harden out. Obviously, more usage for him, more assist opportunities. Um, but yeah, Philly's definitely a spot we have to keep an eye on. We already touched on Charlotte. Another big one is going to be these Miami Heat. We have Jimmy Butler out this season. And I just think this, they didn't update it here, but on the app, you can see Jimmy Butler. He's got his fake dreads in. Hilarious at Media Day. This guy put on fake hair. And now in all his pictures, he has this crazy haircut. Maybe DK's updated it. Yeah, pretty ridiculous what he did. But it's fun when you're watching even like a game cast on ESPN or something. Every time he scores, you see these this hilarious photo. There we go. Yeah, Butler's never had hair like that in his life. He just put these extensions in for media day because he knew all season we'd have to look at him. And yeah, I think that's just great. But for the sake of today's slate, he's out, which means everyone else is going to look good. Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry. Those are probably my two favorites, followed by Tyler Hero. Hero's price is up on DK, scoring dependent, so he could burn you, but with the extra usage and a soft matchup against the Pacers, I do like him here. But yeah, I'm prioritizing Lowry at 6,300. I just think that's too cheap. People don't seem to want to play him, but he's just been great lately, consistently hitting value at this price on both sites. Pretty sure he was in my first dummy build when I built on FanDuel last night. But yeah, 6,500. I think that looks great. Bam Adebayo, he's priced up slightly on FanDuel to 8,300. He's technically listed as questionable. Um, Pretty confident he plays. If he doesn't, I mean, that's going to really open things up in this front court. We could see Dwayne Dedman starting at center, who would quickly become an interesting value option. Max Strus scoring dependent, but he's been really solid. And they just have a lot of value on this team. You kind of have to pick and choose which guys you trust. For me, obviously, it's Lowry and Bam first, followed by Hero, kind of on a tier in the middle of his own. Strus, Caleb Martin, both all right plays. Some risk involved with them because they don't always shoot the ball that often. And then Gabe Vincent, I think, is okay coming off the bench in all likelihood. But yeah, keep an eye on this. If you really need a punt, Duncan Robinson, it's going to come down to if his threes are going in or not, if he's going to hit value for you. But more often than not, they seem to. So I don't mind him. But yeah, it's Kyle Lowry and Bam. And if Bam's out, we definitely have to take a good long look at Dwayne Dedman. And yeah, Oladipo's still out for Miami as well. Middleton's out again, but that's really nothing new. Giannis looks great here. I think that's all the big news. I know Anthony Davis is questionable, like he is every other day. If he's out, we're gonna look at LeBron and even Russ a little bit more. Um, but yeah, let's take a quick look over to the model at the value. And again, if you're not a member of Occupy Fantasy, consider joining. You're going to get access to experts. You're going to get access to this model. We have a lineup builder as well. And it kind of takes lineup building to the next level. You can kind of factor in ownership of your roster, and we'll help you kind of identify the right contest to be entering, which is super, super valuable. Um, but yeah, let's take a quick look at the value here. I'll start with DK. And we talked about most of these plays already, which is going to make this a good thing. But I like this too because I get to talk through the injuries and then I can see kind of what pieces I missed. And first and foremost, I'm noticing Jalen McDaniels pop. So let's click over to Charlotte. But yeah, with so many guys out, and I mean Hayward's out, um, and the 2 point guards. Talked about PJ Washington. McDaniels is kind of inconsistent. He kind of needs blocks and steals to hit value consistently. 5 steals last time out is just insane. I don't think we could really project something like that, but at 5,300, he's going to be in play. I imagine he would start with Hayward out. So, yeah, nice to look at the model and catch something I missed. Um, but yeah, Melton on DK, he's almost a lock with Harden out. And assuming he starts at only 4,400, decent play on FanDuel. But yeah, tough to get away from on DK. Edmund Sumner here, he's going to pop his value on both sites. But again, I'd like to see him in the starting lineup. I think that's kind of important. If it is Patty Mills, I don't necessarily love Patty Mills. I want it to be Sumner, but we're dealing with Jacque Vaughn as the head coach right now. It's really tough to know exactly what we're going to see. We talked about Oubre, Harris. Aldama's been solid for the Grizzlies. I think we could take a look at him. One of the top plays today for me, and I don't know that I'm gonna have time to just talk through my top tier plays, but Porzingis against Brooklyn. I mean, if you're playing Kevin Durant, I think Porzingis is maybe the best run back. You can play him at power forward or center on FanDuel, but yeah, Brooklyn's front court defense hasn't been great. Like Claxton's a decent defender one-on-one, but it's pretty easy to scheme against them. They like to play in transition. So yeah, I like KP here a lot. And let me throw him in on DK as well. Just something to touch on. I just saw Brandon Ingram's name. I think he's back this evening, which would cut into Zion and McCollum. All those guys are okay plays, but if you can only play one of them, it's kind of tough to pick. So for me, maybe I'm on less Pelicans. If we got 12 games to choose from, you don't necessarily need to go there. Clicking back into the model. Obviously, Bam's popping. Miles Turner looks good here. If Chris Duarte is going to get another start, he had a really good game earlier in the week. He's around 4K on both sites. He's a decent play. The Warriors are on a back-to-back, but we're getting value there with guys like Kevon Looney and Draymond Green. Since he's inconsistent, his price never seems to come up. But for his ceiling, he's too cheap. So I like him on both sites. PJ Washington, we talked about. Grayson Allen's an okay kind of lower owned value punt. But yeah, there's guys we're prioritizing. We're prioritizing the Heat, the Sixers, the Clippers, some of these Nets, the Hornets. So yeah, the model's going to kind of tell you where to go for value. FanDuel as well, similar. We're getting Reggie Jackson much higher up where he's only 4,700. I do think you could take a look there. Really hasn't shown us a ceiling recently. But yeah, I mean, when you could get a guard that cheap that's going to play over 30 minutes, he's someone you have to consider. We're getting a lot of these Heat guys, Max Strus, Caleb Martin. They look really good. If Bam's out, they'll look even better. Cam Johnson's price never seems to move on FanDuel for the Suns at 4,500. And that game, there is some blowout risk, but I think Cam Johnson's the type of player who could see run into the fourth, even if there is a blowout. So I do like him. Um, but yeah, a lot to like here. And then I guess I do have a few minutes. I could quickly click just our OF and index, which kind of weighs upside with price. More of an emphasis on upside, I believe. But yeah, Giannis looks great. He's way up there. We got Durant here with Kyrie and Simmons out. We got to keep an eye on the Lakers. That situation always seems to be fluid. I think they're all healthy tonight. But if AD's out, obviously LeBron would see a boost. Embiid, if he's in, just keep an eye on the minutes. Obviously, if Harden's out, he's someone we want to play. But that's just something we have to keep an eye on. But yeah, 12 games tonight, guys. A lot to like here on this slate. I'm going to cut this short. I really appreciate you all tuning in today. Again, my name's Nick Marro. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Hopefully, you see me on the leaderboards. I'm Nicky the Eye on DraftKings and FanDuel. And again, join Occupy Fantasy, get access to our model, get access to our lineup builder. We answer questions in Discord. We even have a voice channel leading into lock about a half hour before lock where we're taking everyone's questions and making sure they're answered in a one-on-one manner. Feel free to comment on the video if you have any questions, but please like and subscribe. Help us climb these algorithms. And yeah, we really appreciate you tuning in. Let's have some fun, have a great weekend, and let's make some money tonight.